Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel on a brand new video on Marvel Contest of Champions. We are going to be talking about the whole Sentineloids thing and some particular mini bosses which is getting the community a little bit wound up, riled up. Man, people are really done frothing at the mouth with regards to like putting disappointment as well as frustrations as well as criticism towards the developers when it comes to the new map changes which have gone live today. So if you remember from the event that we're currently in at the moment, there's something called Sentinels. They look a little bit like, that. Yeah, they're pretty darn scary. They certainly look quite menacing. And yeah, they look like, well, I'm not going to say what they look like. If you guys follow the channel, you know exactly what I think they look like. But regardless to opinions on the way they look, the main aspect that people are really frustrated about is theoretically how good they are in comparison with a lot of things like the Ultron drones, even, if I can say that right, droids, I don't know what they're called, drones or droids, whichever they're called. Also, we have the symbioids, we have the adaptoids. These are far more complex as well as a little bit more trickier than your standard symbiotes or others. One of the main aspects is the double immunity side of things, the poison immunity as well as the bleed immunity. I mean, that's bad-ish, give or take it, if other things weren't there as well. Now, it doesn't just stop there. There's been a lot of criticisms with regards to like other aspects with regards to Sentineloids, but that is the main kind of aspect that you need to kind of diversify as well as think more about who you're taking in, as opposed to last time, which was the case like, hey, they were weak as anything and you could just like take in anything and that was absolutely fine. The game has somewhat changed, and like I said, you got to think a bit more creatively. I myself tried things like using an Iceman, but then, yeah, debuff effects. Bit of a bad decision. It does shrug them off, cold snap and all that, those kind of things. It's on, it's gone, it's on, it's gone. Bit frustrating. However, though, there could be a method that I kind of use with that, where I quickly heavy attack and also take off all those cold snaps. But again, that is something that doesn't really work. The next thing that everybody really kind of said that they didn't like is the special side of things. So the L1 and the L2. The L1 is very frustrating, but at the same time you have to remember about one full evade away back, and then also like, I mean, for me, in my perspective, what I like doing is to then micro evade. So one long evade and then two micro evade. So tick, tick, tick. And it usually works each time for me. But obviously what works for me may not work for somebody else, and someone may have a better idea with regards to evading. I'll probably run a clip of me doing that on top of this video to give you a bit of perspective of what I'm talking about. The next thing is people are worrying about the L3 side of things, and that's not there, so it's all about focusing on the L2 and the L1 that you've got to think about obviously getting away from. But there are certain champions that people within the community, and obviously I will invite everybody that watches this video to go down into the comment section and list off champions that you think would be effective, maybe a reasoning why, to then give people a better perspective. I've got my list of champions which I really like the looks of with regards to playing with, and also kind of making sure that they are, you know, kicking a lot of ass. One thing to really remember is they fire energy damage. So look at champions that maybe kind of work around energy damage. For example, we've got Absorption from Captain Marvel. I know it's not really a fan favorite, especially with the L2 problem. Yeah, that goes on and on. But there is options with regards to that based on like damage output. So you don't have to put in your L1 and L2. You can build your L3, build your power bar and put in a lot more damage. Or just build to L3 and just like smacking a really, you know, tasty L3 against the enemy. But the absorption is something that helps. The same thing happens with Ultron. If you're not familiar with Ultron as well, absorption works in the same way. So if you've got an awakened Captain Marvel and an awakened Ultron, they could be quite effective. Yes, there's a lot of downsides to using Ultron, but I myself quite enjoy him. And as well, being poison immune as well as bleed immune is helpful to then go on different paths when you're doing several maps. I think the next thing to really kind of mention about that and go a bit further is power control. If you've got champions that power control, that again could be a good option. I'm looking at magic. I'm also looking at champions like Dormammu, and awakened Dormammu, get that tasty degen off. I don't think it, I think it does bypass the whole thing about purifying kind of debuff effects, because degen, if it shrugs off degen, then that's completely ridiculous. So yeah, look to maybe those two champions to kind of power control if you're worried about the champion getting up to those L1s and L2s a lot quickly. And quickly to shout out a few kind of like champion examples to use: King Groot, Stark Spidey, Thor OG, duped version, if you can. Obviously, people may not have that. Medusa, which I probably will be using next AQ. And as well, like, potentially Vision. But, like, do be warned by certain champions. Like, they may not be good for you. They may be good for someone, but not for another. So like I said, I invite you all to put suggestions into the comments section that is structured and obviously like well researched, that if you find that they definitely work with regards to certain things, like putting their strengths against the whole situation would be really handy. I probably will be repeating the same thing in a future video that's maybe like a little bit shorter and more structured, but at the same time we need to move on and talk about the criticisms about certain champions that have been added in. With regards to map 1 and map 2, I've seen no criticisms with regards to the champions that are added in. They're fairly easy champions to kind of get the grips with, and obviously that's for the people that are just learning into the game and obviously getting the establishment of their leadership and also the alliance in general. So yeah, it does seem absolutely fine. When it comes to map 4, there are a little bit of evolution with certain champions, and they can be a little bit of a pest, but they're not over the realms of being difficult, and I think a lot of players will just like easily get through them. Some stuff with regards to, say, champions that have been in for a long time, like Mordo for example, people have kind of like learnt what's the kind of the crack with that champion. At the same time with like regeneration reversals, and also kind of learning from alliance wars that they've been in at lower levels, and just general kind of like being in the contest for a good amount of time. Summoners will probably be a little more comfortable with map 4 nowadays. And also, the thing is, I don't know a lot of people that actually do map 4. I think a lot of people either opt to kind of either go map 5, go hard, or go home. However, it's map 5 that has the level of criticism, and this is where we're going to start the kind of the basis of this talk. And a lot of it's squared upon Nightcrawler, Nightcrawler being the one that we've kind of encountered today, and how things really kind of go on through the week will be a testament to like how the community actually responds back to this. A lot of the champions like Green Goblin will be ones that, you know, people can adapt to and kind of look at things like regeneration reversals and how that can be affected. So obviously make sure that you are diversifying what you're taking in when it comes to different alliance quests. Morningstar is a bit of a difficult one to kind of judge sometimes, and most of the time she doesn't deliver when it comes to being in like defensive stuff. Other times like she just like powerhouses in. I like using it on the offense, so when it comes to like facing off against a defense, which I've not had any experience of, I've not come into Alliance Wars battle and found her as an opponent to go against, so it's something that I will have to adapt to. Loving playing with her, not quite sure with regards to playing against, so that is going to be interesting. But like I said, we haven't had the feedback back from those two champions yet. We're still yet to see that, but the main focus is Nightcrawler. Right, people's main criticisms about this champion is Limber. That is one thing, and the next thing is Nightcrawler is he's a little bit tricky. Okay, let's kind of not beat around the bush. The next thing is that consideration for players in different devices. Having a boss like Nightcrawler in, or a mini boss, is very frustrating for those that maybe don't have the most powerful device. I myself run an iPhone 7 Plus, but I also have an Xperia from probably about 2015, 2016, and I do at times kind of jump on that and kind of say, like, how was the experience of the game whilst playing that? And the answer is pretty bad. I would need like a top of the range one in order to kind of make sure that my parries as well as my blocks were on point. And obviously with having Limber on is very frustrating, so I do understand where different places and people in the community feel very negatively towards maybe Limber as well as Nightcrawler being a boss. If I remember rightly, there used to be a case that, and shoot me down if I'm wrong, that there was a Spider-Man, like an OG Spider-Man, that was a mini boss. I think that was back in the day, and yeah, that was frustrating, but I think there was levels of kind of bypassing the situation. So kind of Kabam going from an evade champion to then away from an evade champion and back to an evade champion is a little bit frustrating, but I think that we will probably learn to kind of like get along with it and kind of get it sorted and hopefully get through. But obviously feedback at the end of the week when it comes to the end of the Alliance Quest map 5 will then tell the community, tell the developers whether or not people are actually going to bother with map 5 in general. This then moves me on to map 6. Again, nothing with regards to like feedback on map 6 yet, and Void, so it would be quite interesting to see what goes into the forum with regards to feedback in general. Like, do the higher rated players or kind of high rated and prestige alliances go, hey, you know, we're not happy about this one, we're probably going to jump down to map 5. What are people's thoughts? Like, let us know about that. That would be cool to find out. The ending point is that unfortunately a lot of players will find this a little bit more frustrating than others, and obviously it's not really meant to be as easy for whatever reason this time round. But, and also to mention, yes, I did focus on the skill Sentinel. There are other Sentinels, but the main thing with regards to using armor break and also say champions that do have different types of immunities, as well as those that look at absorption, as well as power control champions, will be good choices when it comes to going into alliance questing. And the one thing to really address and talk about is the 20 analysis and the 40 analysis. So by the end of the week, we're going to see stronger Sentineloids, and the health pool is going to be a lot larger. So we've got to try and not push them to 40 analysis, because at that point specials become unblockable. So obviously that's where power control is going to come into effect. You're going to have to make sure they don't get to do a special. So power locking, you know, is going to be essential. 20 analysis is fine with regards to, you know, abilities trigger through block, but it's that 40 analysis that you've got to try and make sure that they can't shoot any kind of attacks at you, especially special attacks. So that has been a video all about the kind of community type backlash and some thoughts with regards to like what we can do in order to kind of prepare ourselves when it comes to fighting Sentineloids. If you did enjoy the video, hit that like button and also subscribe for Marvel Contest Champions based content. Like I said, I invite you in the comment section to come up with a list of champions that maybe you think are applicable for the situation and also helpful for the situation, whether or not it's a power control champion, it's a champion that does armor break, whatever your suggestion is. And obviously make sure that you kind of put a good kind of rounded kind of point, that's why they're a good champion, so it then helps out the community. Thanks again for watching, and as always I shall catch you on the flip side. Bye bye for now.